everybody, I'm Sam from Top Dog Tours, and today we're going to be checking out all the great holiday sites in Midtown Manhattan. We'll take a look at St. Patrick's Cathedral, Radio City Music Hall, and of course, we'll talk about the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree. To start, we're here in front of St. Patrick's Cathedral. In order to understand the importance of Christmas in New York, you first have to understand the historical origins of the holiday. Back in the Middle Ages, Christmas was a combination of the celebration of the birth of Christ along with a Roman holiday known as Saturnalia, which was this riotous pagan affair. But if we fast forward to the Puritans, they actually outlawed Christmas until 1660, when it started to be celebrated in a much calmer and more religious manner. Interests in Christmas were revived in the 1820s, when Washington Irving wrote a series of stories about the holiday. He declared that St. Nicholas was the patron saint of New York State, and he even claimed that St. Nick's image had been on the masthead of the first Dutch ship that sailed into New York City. In 1821, Arthur J. Stansbury wrote a poem called The Children's Friend, where he changed the idea of St. Nicholas on a horse to St. Nicholas in a sleigh led by reindeer. Then, in 1823, Clement Clarke Moore wrote a story called A Visit from St. Nicholas, or as we all know it today, Was the Night Before Christmas, which actually takes place here in New York City. Now, New York has been involved in a lot of firsts that have to do with Christmas. We were the first city to have Santa in a Thanksgiving Day parade, and we were also the first city to sell poinsettias as Christmas decorations. But unfortunately, we were the second city to have an official tree lighting because Boston beat us by about 30 minutes. Behind me is St. Patrick's Cathedral, a Roman Catholic church and the seat of the Archdiocese here in the city. This also hosts two of the hottest holiday events of the season. The first is the Christmas Midnight Mass, which you actually have to have tickets to get into. The way you get tickets is you enter a raffle that runs from June to October, and they actually get thousands of requests for tickets every year. But there's also another Mass you can go to, the 5:30 p.m. Christmas Day Children's Mass, and people will line up for 6 hours beforehand just to ensure they get seats. The Rockefeller Center Christmas tree is probably the most famous tree in America. The official tradition began in 1933, but 2 years prior to that, in 1931, the workers at the Depression-era construction site for the Rockefeller Center pooled their money together to get a much smaller 20-foot tree that they decorated with their families, using strings of cranberry, paper garlands, and even a few tin cans. John D. Rockefeller loved this idea so much that the next year he showed up with a bunch of gifts for his workers as they decorated the tree. They made it an official tradition in 1933, and to complete the perfect winter aesthetic, they even added an ice rink in the plaza in 1936. Since 1951, the lighting of the tree has been a televised, star-studded event. The tree is generally a Norway spruce, and it must be 69 feet tall, but in the past it's been up to 100 feet tall. The tree generally comes from New York, but it can also come from Maine, Vermont, Washington State, and even once from Canada. Once they grab the tree, they bring it back here to New York City, where they set it upright using a bunch of wires and scaffolding to put the decorations up. The decorations include 5 miles of lights and a huge Swarovski crystal star that sits on the top and is 9.5 feet in diameter and weighs 550 pounds. This year, the tree is a 75-foot Norway spruce that comes from Oneonta, New York. Kind of a cute little side story. Apparently when they set up the tree, there was a tiny owl living in one of the branches. But don't worry, he's safe and sound. The tree is also truly a giving tree. After they take it down, they donate all the lumber to Habitat for Humanity, and all of the mulch goes to feeding the parks in New York City. Let's head on down to Radio City. Radio City Music Hall was constructed in 1932 by 2 architects, Edward Durrell Stone and Donald Deskey. It was originally intended to be called the International Music Hall, but they adopted the name Radio City after one of the first tenants, the Radio Corporation of America, or the RCA. Since 1933, the Radio City Music Hall has been home to the Christmas Spectacular every year, which is a 90-minute Christmas variety show that stars the precision dance company, the Rockettes. Founded in 1925 in St. Louis, my hometown, the Rockettes were originally known as the Missouri Rockettes, then the Roxyettes, and finally the Rockettes. They began performing at Radio City in 1933 alongside a film called Flying Down to Rio. That was the same year they performed in the Christmas Spectacular for the first time. The dance company became known for their eye-high unison kicks, and they performed in the Spectacular every year since. Unfortunately, 2020 is the first year we won't see a performance. There are still two numbers from the original Spectacular that are performed in the show today: the March of the Wooden Soldiers and the Living Nativity, which features real-life horses, goats, sheep, and even a camel. And now let's head on over to Bryant Park. Welcome to Bryant Park. This 9.6-acre park is situated on land that has been declared public space since 1686. From 1823 to 1840, this was a potter's field, though the bodies have since been removed. And it was also the site of the Crystal Palace that burned down before the Civil War. In 1847, this place became known as Reservoir Square, and they then later changed the name to Bryant Park in 1884 after William Cullen Bryant, an abolitionist and an editor of the New York Evening Post. The Bryant Park Winter Village is modeled after winter villages that pop up in Central Europe during this time of year. Starting in 2002, the Winter Village was a way to draw people to the park during the winter months. The booths are filled with local and handmade goods, as well as food from some of the hottest restaurants in New York City. And the ice skating rink is free, especially if you bring your own skates. Now let's head on to our final destination. Welcome to Macy's. From 1843 to 1855, Rowland H. Macy opened up a series of retail dry goods stores, including the original Macy's in downtown Haverhill, Massachusetts. Unfortunately, all of those stores failed, but he learned from his mistakes, and then he moved here to New York City, where he opened up R.H. Macy & Co., which was situated on 6th Avenue between 13th and 14th Streets. Apparently, on the first day of business, Macy's made $11.08, or $306.15 in today's money. Now, the Macy's logo has always included the star, which came from a tattoo that Macy himself got as a teenager living on a whaling ship in Nantucket known as the Emily Morgan. In 1902, Macy's flagship store moved up here to 34th Street. It was so far away from all the other dry goods stores that they actually had to send a steamed wagonette to take people from 14th Street to 34th Street. The first parade happened in 1924, when the employees of the flagship store marched up to 34th Street wearing vibrant costumes. They had floats, bands, and they even borrowed some animals from the Central Park Zoo. The parade ended up being so successful that Macy's said they were going to have one every year, and it's had a long and storied history since then. In 1928, they released the floats at the end of the parade into the sky, and they burst unexpectedly. So the next year, they made them a little differently, and they sewed address labels into the balloons so that anyone who found one could send it back to Macy's and receive a free gift. The only time that the parade has ever been canceled was during World War II. They canceled it from 1942 to 1944. And the parade gained national popularity in 1947 with the movie Miracle on 34th Street, where they used actual footage from the previous year's festivities in the movie. To this day, at the end of the parade, Santa's always welcomed into Herald Square as he ushers in the holiday spirit. Another time-tested tradition here in New York is the Macy's Holiday Window Display. Every year, Macy's unveils a new holiday window display that takes a year to plan and over a month to build. Thank you guys so much for joining me on Top Dog Tours New York Holiday Tour. I'm Sam, and I hope you'll come visit us the next time you're in the city.